special presentation of HBO Sports, the network of champions.
Heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson have circled each other for years, vying for supremacy in boxing's glamour division without ever facing off in the ring. June 8th, with tempers hot, Lewis versus Tyson is finally on. Over the next half hour, we'll take an in-depth look at one of the most talked about matchups in years. In the aftermath of the January news conference melee, Lennox Lewis emerged with a bite on his leg. We'll hear from the champion as he speaks in detail about the bite and how it affected his preparations for a uniquely dangerous opponent.
When somebody bites your leg, you look down to see who's biting your leg, and I seen Tyson biting my leg.
For Tyson, the press conference bite just the tip of the iceberg as Iron Mike attempts to turn revolting behavior into an art form.
Look out now!
I want his brain to come in contact with my fist.
Though 6 years removed now from his last heavyweight title, Mike Tyson continues to command media and public attention. We'll examine our enduring fascination with Tyson as he continues an unparalleled public saga.
Let's be honest, that's why people are watching this fight. They're watching it to see what morbidly could happen.
Trainers Teddy Atlas and Tommy Brooks join us to share their views on how they think the big showdown will play out. Brooks was Tyson's trainer for his last 6 fights. And we'll visit with Evander Holyfield, the only man to face both Lewis and Tyson twice. It's the countdown to the heavyweight title fight years in the making, bringing you inside the ropes for expert insight on the battle between two of the dominant champions of their era. Lewis versus Tyson is finally on. Hello, I'm Jim Lampley with HBO boxing analyst Larry Merchant, and we welcome you to this preview of the most eagerly anticipated heavyweight championship fight in 5 years since Mike Tyson fought Evander Holyfield the second time in Las Vegas. Poetically enough, the two fights are joined together, not at the hip, but at the teeth of Mike Tyson, who ended the first one by biting Evander Holyfield in the ring and almost ended this one by biting Lennox Lewis at a news conference. Larry, the major boxing states, Nevada, California, New York, all rejected this fight because of Mike Tyson's bizarre behavior in and out of the ring. So are we headed to Memphis for a prize fight or a circus act?
How about both? It is a heavyweight championship fight, and one that has been anticipated for a long, long time. So many years that it almost seems like celebrity boxing by now. Mike Tyson being the ultimate bad boy celebrity. The ring announcer should be a carny barker. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, fans and voyeurs, and watch the former heavyweight champion of the world explode or implode. You pays your money and you takes your chances.
Indeed, and the general expectation is that a landmark number of us will pay our money and take our chances. Maybe not as many as for the ear-biting fight, but many more than for Lewis's 2 unification fights against Evander Holyfield. Is it the primal magnetism of an indomitable force of nature? Is it the boxing cult longing for a simpler, more intelligible, blunt force heavyweight world? Or is it just plain old prurient interest that won't let us let go of Mike Tyson?
I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion that ever been.
Controversial.
I want your heart. I want to eat his children.
Socially unacceptable.
1,000 years from now, Hitler's going to be
And relentlessly,
kicking into his motherfucking head.
unabashedly,
That's how you in your ass.
obscene.
I normally don't do interviews with women unless I fornicate with them.
Mike Tyson continues to dominate headlines just as he once dominated the heavyweight division.
He certainly has notoriety. Unfortunately, most of his headlines are now made in ways that have nothing to do with what he's best at.
Today, public fascination with the man known as Iron Mike far transcends the 4 sides of the ring. His private and public life constantly in turmoil, which mesmerizes a curious public.
He's a show unto himself. Apparently he lives right on the edge. I can't think of anybody in the history of boxing who's been quite like him.
I'm the biggest fighter in the history of the sport. If you don't believe it, just check the cash register.
Our fascination with Tyson began 16 years ago when he exploded on the heavyweight scene, filled with overpowering fistic rage and an intimidating presence.
And we have a new era in boxing.
Tyson was one of those rare heavyweights who can intimidate people, like a Sonny Liston or George Foreman.
There's no fighter like me, and I can beat any man in the world.
The only thing he could do was he could punch.
But that aura of invincibility was ripped from his shoulders in 1990. The night a 42-1 underdog named Buster Douglas separated Tyson from his senses and his crown.
What an uppercut by Douglas, and down goes Tyson.
No longer boxing's best. The kid from Brownsville spiraled out of control. His deeds and misdeeds chronicled, his first divorce, a national television festival, and then his front page headlined rape conviction.
We have all of these sort of dimensions of unraveling that we see, and it sort of intrigues us because many of our lives don't resemble the chaos and drama, and it's some way of us in a voyeuristic way of being fulfilled in some ways.
But chaos followed Tyson back into the ring, and several of his fights turned into theater of the bizarre.
Second Holyfield fight, I mean, it's a rare time you get to see a professional athlete have a mental breakdown in public.
Then he gets in against Orlin Norris. He knocks him down. He gets in with friends, both, and he's trying to break his arm. The Lou Savarese fight, I mean, he was decking everybody. He had Savarese out. He had the referee out. He had everybody. In the old days, the fascination with Tyson, was how fast is the knockout going to come? Now the fascination is, when's the train wreck going to come?
Tyson doesn't see it this way. He believes many people view him as a legitimate anti-establishment figure, giving voice to those who have suffered at the hands of society.
Let everybody know that from Brownsville, South Central, anywhere, even the Aryan Brotherhood guys in Indiana, who don't have anybody that loves them because they've been in prison and they never had anything. They can do some shit, man.
I think some people are still in his corner, no matter how dysfunctional he is. I think there's some people who still pull for the old Mike Tyson.
But most watch out of morbid curiosity, wondering if Mike Tyson will unravel and self-destruct one more time in the ring.
And they're going to keep their eyes only on Tyson. What's he going to do next? Is he going to bite him in the leg? Is he going to kick him? Is he going to pull a pistol out of his trunks and blast him? Is he going to club him with an axe that he's hidden in his sock?
They're going to learn to respect the barbarian king.
He's Godzilla to most people.
I'll take your life. That's what I do.
They see everything they're afraid of.
I'm the greatest ever and will always be the greatest ever.
But when he loses, there's a large portion of the world that feels things are right with the world.
I've seen the most vicious and most cruelest and coldest white people in the world. They accept me. He can't stop me. Him.
That's why he continues to sell tickets and cause people to watch him fight even when he's past his prime.
And tickets he has sold. He carried the promotion, making it the largest live gate in history. Now, with all eyes on Tyson, can he carry the fight as well?
I'll give my best to destroy him. I just want to put my hand through his head and in his brain. I want his brain to come in contact with my fist. I want to damage his brain.
On June 8th against Lennox Lewis, for better or for worse, the focus will again be on Mike Tyson. Can he deliver another explosive knockout or just another explosion? Larry, Tyson's handlers, to use the concept loosely, insist he's no psychopath, just a great promoter who behaves the way he does to sell tickets. Any truth to that?
Tyson once said that he never had a real friend, and this seems to prove that sad admission. Real friends would try to help him, not apologize for and enable him. But judging from his purses, the marketing strategy of rape, felonious road rage, cannibalism, and raw gangster rap seems to work. We're here, aren't we?
Indeed we are, and if we weren't, we'd surely ante up for the pay-per-view. But Mike's unpredictability in the ring, couldn't that be a competitive factor if it bothers Lennox Lewis?
Tyson has so little control of his rage that it could bother Lewis. But look at it like the knockdown pitch in baseball. Some batters are intimidated by it, become tentative. The good ones are steeled by it, become tougher. We'll see what Lewis is made of.
Indeed. And that question, exactly what Lennox Lewis is made of, has been at the center of debate in the boxing world for 10 years now. To some degree, it's a mystery Lewis has fueled by allowing the public eye to find him only when it cared to, as opposed to seeing his title as a mandate to promote the sport. In the days after the January 22 news conference melee at which Tyson did or didn't bite him on the thigh, some general reporters were surprised at Lewis's refusal to enter the discussion. But boxing writers weren't surprised at all. Only after the fight had been laboriously relocated, new contracts written and executed on all sides, would Lewis finally open up about what happened in the brawl on Broadway.
He should fear everything about me. He should fear the fact that I don't fear him. He should fear the fact that I'm the best. I'm at top of the food chain, baby. That doesn't mean he should bite me again.
The infamous thigh bite press conference has had an effect on Lennox Lewis, but not the one Mike Tyson may have hoped for.
Heavyweight champion of the world, Lennox Lewis.
When they started to introducing Lennox and giving him all of the big praises as a, champion of the world and three-time champion, I think Mike just snapped.
He rushed over to me, threw his hat on the ground and marched over to me with a wrinkled face. And then my security stopped him from getting close to me. At that time, he took a swing at my security, and then everything just unloaded after that.
Lennox actually hit Mike as soon as he got close to him, and I think he hit him again before they actually crashed to the floor.
While me and him were wrestling around on the ground, he bit me on my leg. That was real shocking for me because I'm not used to getting bit, especially by a man. Both fighters, there's no honor in biting somebody, and obviously he's not an honorable man.
After admitting to the bite, Tyson recanted, claiming he took responsibility only to meet public expectations. But Lewis subjected his leg to DNA testing.
Just to prove that he's the one that bit me, they tried to use the excuse that, oh, anybody could have bit me because there was so much going on. And I'm saying, no. When somebody bites your leg, you look down to see who's biting your leg, and I seen Tyson biting my leg. First I said, I don't really need this, why should I fight a guy that wants to bite? But then I said, he beat me on my leg, I need to get him back. So the best place to get him back and the best stage is in the ring, so you could say he'd draw first blood. So that really enticed me to really train hard to really get him back.
Lewis says he is motivated by Tyson's antics, not scared by them. But his opponent's volatility has been a source of uncommon concern for the champion.
The only time that Lennox has ever questioned me about the possibility of a fight being canceled was this fight. When he asked me once, he says, between you and I, you think this fight's really going to come off? I think Mike's going to do something, end up having the whole fight canceled. I says, no, I don't think so.
And when Lewis finally steps into the ring with Tyson, he'll be prepared for more than just boxing.
Mike Tyson has a bully mentality, so, when things aren't going his way, he's going to resort to doing something against the confounds of the rules. My main focus is not to get bit, to punch him if he gets into range of my ears and keep him back.
I think that Mike's going to go through with this fight. I think he's going to be very well prepared. And I think he's going to come out and attack Lennox with more intensity and viciousness than Lennox has ever been attacked within his life.
All important fights where I find that there's that situation where I could get hurt or this person may win, always brings out the best in Lennox Lewis.
So the champion is more determined than ever to beat Tyson because of the melee at the press conference. But Lewis's reasons for wanting this fight run much deeper than the bite marks on his leg.
A lot of people still hold Tyson in such high regard. They haven't really been giving me my props for such a long time, and I think this is my defining fight for them to give me my props. A lot of the questions that they've asked about Lennox Lewis, whether his stamina is good, whether he has a great chin, whether he can last, I've answered all those questions. You could say Mike Tyson is the last question I need to answer.
It's not always easy to answer questions in boxing, as Lewis found out when he thought he'd beaten Evander Holyfield in their first fight, only to end up with a draw. Among the three dominant heavyweights of the past 15 years, Holyfield went to war the most, having fought both Lewis and Tyson twice apiece. He's gotten the closest look, and he sat down to talk with Larry about the fight.
The fight. Who wins? Why?
Tyson gonna be aggressive, and it's Lennox fight like he accustomed to fighting, then I think Tyson wins.
Can he fight the in-your-face, face-down the bully kind of fight that you did?
Well, he can, but the point is, it takes heart to do that because everybody knows that Tyson throws thundering punches, his hands are a lot quicker, so you have to have the heart to do that.
Can we agree first, Evander, that you have a dog in that hunt? That if Tyson beats Lewis, you're more likely to get a third shot at him than Lewis?
No. I think with either one, it would be some kind of problem, one way or another.
I've read where you said that Lewis
was at least partially at fault for the fracas that resulted in him getting bit. Is that true?
Yes, I feel that it is, because in heavyweight bouts, that's the first time I ever known that a heavyweight would bring a bodyguard with him to make sure that the other heavyweight don't attack. I don't say what Tyson did was right, even getting off the podium and walking up to him, but the fact is that he wasn't wrong by himself.
Evander, over this last decade, you fought Riddick Bowe 3 times, Tyson and Lewis twice, Foreman, Mercer, Michael Moore twice. Mike Tyson has only fought of the elite heavyweights of his time, you, twice, and twice he lost. Why is he considered a great fighter?
Well, that's someone else's opinion. And, you know, I think for all that he had accomplished beforehand, people say he was the greatest fighter. You know, he was a technical fighter back then that a lot of people was afraid of. I felt that he was one of the best heavyweights. Now, from 1996 to 2002, no, he hadn't shown anything, but had nobody asked him either. So when this Lennox Lewis fight, it would prove something to everybody, because he getting a chance to fight a person who can fight.
We've come to appreciate that in Mike Tyson's early days with legendary trainer Customato, much of the day-to-day in the gym teaching of Tyson was provided by Teddy Atlas, who went on to train his own heavyweight champion, Michael Moore. Teddy joins us now, as does Tommy Brooks, who trained Tyson for his last 6 fights. First, a quick visit inside their minds to see how they view this fight.
Tyson gonna do what he gotta do. He'll go out there, bombs away, desperate early, maybe even before the bell rings.
Lennox needs to jump right on him, right off the top, and get some respect from him.
Lewis has to draw a line in the canvas. What you're doing is force Tyson to come in. And when Tyson comes in, pam, pam, nail him before he can get into your punching range. Or, better put, before he can get into his punching range.
Lennox is an extremely good jabber. He throws that right off the jabs, real nice. It's going to be a tough night for Mike if Lennox decides to fight long range.
Nah. Doesn't work that easy. Because if he just stays defensive too long, Tyson will be exploited where he's weak. He doesn't handle pressure real well. And he's a good puncher. And if you leave a good puncher in the fight, staying brave, sooner or later, boom, your house is going to fall down.
One shot, he may not get up. That's all it takes. Was he lucky?
The advantage to fighting on the inside plays into Mike's hand. Mike has to be all around the guy. I think he needs to make a direct line at him and then veer off, firing as he goes. If he doesn't use that pendulum movement and fire off his movement, he's going to be in trouble.
He's got a real good chin. Better chin than Lewis. Nobody's talked about that. I think that might be his biggest strength. The 2 guys that knocked out Lewis and put him into the unconscious already in his career couldn't punch as hard as Tyson and not as hard with either hand as Tyson could punch.
It's all in the fighter's mind. I think if you can hit a guy in the head with a brick, if Lennox made up his mind that he's not going anywhere, he's not going anywhere.
Mercer pounds away. And a great right uppercut by Lewis.
Tyson lives off intimidation. He's hoping that Lewis will buy into a lot of this stuff, this languaging that he's doing to scare him. If that doesn't work immediately, Tyson is already weak.
Which Lennox shows up? Does the Lennox that box show up, or does the Lennox that go right after the guy and show up?
Tyson can make several mistakes and he can still win the fight. Lewis can't make one.
I think the single most significant fact in this fight is if Tyson's going to be in shape or not. I think Mike realizes this is the last hurrah, this is the last step. If he's not successful, he's finished.
We bring you back to the studio now, where the 2 men who provided those insights now join us. Teddy Atlas, for the moment, trying to train Michael Grant back into heavyweight title contention. Tommy Brooks, not at this moment working with the top flight heavyweight, but he will be soon. You can bet on it. Gentlemen, let's start with this. We all know the scenario by which Lennox Lewis wins a decision. We've seen it many times. I haven't heard anybody talk about the possibility of Mike Tyson winning this fight in a decision. Could it happen, Teddy?
Well, like that rental car commercial, not exactly. But you know what? There is a little bit of a chance. The chances of Monty Hall, remember from Let's Make a Deal, if he shows up in Lennox Lewis's ear and says, let's make a deal, he gets hurt early, he survives, and then when they get inside, he makes those silent contracts that Tyson loves. He even loved them when he was at his top of his game, where he would guide guys to go into submission in a real kind of quiet way, put his hands behind the guy on the inside, and the guy would grab his hands to get a free ride. If that happens, then we could get a decision. That aside, I don't really see it.
Tommy?
I don't see it going to a decision, no kind of way. Somebody's going to sleep. I think that Lennox has something to prove in this fight, and I think that Mike is after one of these three-time championship or world rings, and I just don't see it happening.
So, because of the unanimous expectation that Mike has to win by knockout, probably by early knockout, everybody's telling Lennox, including his trainer Emmanuel Stewart, you have to attack, you have to assert yourself. Is Lennox being goaded, Tommy, into fighting a fight that isn't the one he customarily prefers?
I don't think so. I mean, if you look back at the Galata fight that he had, if you look at Michael Grant, when he stepped right to those guys, you saw what happened. And I think, as I said, he's trying to make a statement in this fight, and I think that's what he's going to do. Knowing Manny, he's going to send him right after him.
You agree, Teddy?
There's a fine line. You want to go punch that schoolyard bully in the mouth, and then all of a sudden he don't talk so much. But when you go to throw that first punch, you don't want to get caught with the first punch. I think that he should draw a line in the canvas, there's no doubt about it. And let's not forget physics over here. Tyson does have to come to him for there to be a fight. He has to.
You said a fascinating thing in the piece. You said if Lennox Lewis makes up his mind not to get knocked out, he's not going anywhere. Is that another way of saying that if Lennox has mastered the mental side of this event, Mike doesn't really have a chance?
You could say that. You could say that.
Teddy?
But then on the other hand, you got to think about Mike. Mike's been to the big dance on many occasions. He knows what he has to do.
Can he fight without drugs, whether they're prescribed or otherwise? Can he be stable?
I think so. Matter of fact, I never knew when he was taking the medication or not. I mean, that wasn't in my business, you know. I'm his trainer. That's what I was doing.
You know, that's a good question. I think the better question would be, should he be fighting without medication? That might be the better question. Nevada didn't allow him to have a license. That's why he's in a place called Tennessee. Why didn't Nevada allow him? Because they felt that other doctors had documented themselves on record of saying that this man is not fit to fight unless he's on medication. And we don't know whether or not he can compete in a proper way on medication. So the real question might be, should he be fighting without medication? Maybe Lennox Lewis should be asking that.
Tommy, who's scared of whom?
I don't think either one of them is scared of either one. I think that Mike has always said that he respects Lennox, and I think Lennox respects Mike as his ability as a fighter. He may not respect him as a person or as a human being, but as a fighter he has to. There's no getting around that.
You said Lennox can't make a single mistake. But even near the peak of his career, Mike went the distance with Quick Tillis. He went the distance with Mitch Green, Tony Tucker, Ribalta until the last 10 seconds. Is Lewis worse than those guys?
No. Bingo. That's where you get a decision. Those guys made silent contracts. Once they felt the power, when they got close, Tyson puts his hands behind them, they grab on, and you have a little bit of a tango. But you have a silent deal. You know, you asked the question before to Tommy, is Tyson afraid of Lewis? That's a good question. I don't think he's afraid of him. I think he's just afraid. I think he's afraid of himself. What's not there?
Who wins the fight?
I hope for the sake of decent people out there, and I don't want to be too corny over here, but for the sake of civilized society out there, I hope Lewis wins it. No, really, because, again, I'm not trying to be Father Flanagan.
Wins it, but who is
I don't want to be Father
win?
Flanagan, but I think that it would be terrible if you could behave that way and you can win. It almost validates that kind of behavior to those people. It's a dangerous fight for Lewis, no doubt about it. But I believe in some good things still in this country. I'll take Lewis.
Me, myself, I'm pulling for Mike. I've always been a Mike fan. Just because I don't work with him, I still love the guy. I'm pulling for him. But logic in my mind, I'm looking for Lennox to knock him out early.
All right, gentlemen, thanks very much for your time. We appreciate it. Well, at the sports books in Las Vegas, Lennox Lewis is about a 2-to-1 favorite in this fight. And some expect those odds will go down in a late surge of Tyson money. So you have to figure boxing writers don't bet, because we polled 20 of them for their predictions on the fight, and 19 picked Lewis by various forms of conquest. George Kimball of the Boston Herald, Steve Springer of the Los Angeles Times, both forecast a Tyson disqualification. The only Tyson voter, Wally Matthews, late of the New York Post, picked Mike by a first-round knockout. Which is logical, Larry, if that is, there's any logic at all which can be applied to an event so unusual it's almost hallucinogenic. The Alice in Wonderland of heavyweight championship fights. Your take?
I give Tyson more of a chance than most. The reason? The best possible outcome for boxing would be for Lennox Lewis to win decisively. But the worst possible things frequently happen to boxing. Maybe it's just my worst fears, Jim.
Well, now to put an irresistible spin on the phrase devil's advocate, I'll argue the opposite, that the reinfusion of Mike Tyson's drawing power into the heavyweight division would be one of the best things that could happen to boxing. So think of that as an unintended benefit, Larry, if the sky falls in Memphis, as you suspect it might. Well, this Saturday night, it's Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson, pay-per-view, the heavyweight championship fight everyone has been waiting to see. And on June 22, it's the rematch of 2000's Fight of the Year when Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera square off on HBO pay-per-view in a featherweight grudge rematch.
This has been a presentation of HBO Sports, the network of champions.